You listen to me. You listen to me.
Listen to me.
You listen to me closer than you've ever listened.
What's up, everybody? This is Friday Night Lights Rewind. I'm your boy, Brandon Collins.
And I'm Chris Allen.
And we were talking about episode 6, season 1, El Accidente, which apparently means the accident in Spanish. It like talks about the central event of the episode and alludes to the communities and how they frame an incident, and the culpability of the people involved in that. Because Reyes is out of control, man. Bobby Bull Reyes.
Yeah, man. This episode, we found out a lot. Like you're saying, you see the townsfolk's how they view the football team and how when their players get in trouble, like you said, how things are framed. You know what I mean?
Yeah, it's also like the first episode that kind of touches on the racial dynamics of Dillon, Texas as well,
Right.
because Reyes gets riled up because of Voodoo calling him a wetback, which I don't like that, phrase. I don't use it.
Right.
But that's what he calls him. And this episode was pretty wild in regards to the language used. This and Homecoming, they say the next episode, they say some pretty wild language in regards to like what would be considered out of character or out of touch, these days.
Definitely. Yeah.
Because so Reyes gets riled up because Voodoo calls him that derogatory term. And Voodoo is just like, Voodoo has a crew now at this, they're going to the diner and he's got a whole crew and stuff. And I'm like, okay, well, that was quick.
Yeah. Like, who are these guys? I mean, he shows up with 2 grown ass men.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? They don't even look like high schoolers.
I mean, I got to give it to Aldous Hodge, though, because I've been watching Cross recently on Amazon and he's fantastic on that. But he is the brother that could be a teddy bear. He could be as sweet as hell, right? But he's so fucking big and intimidating. But I mean, this episode, his characterization of Voodoo is just like he's got those scary eyes. He looks like he's seen some shit and done some shit. So
yeah,
it's obvious. Like that's why Reyes, even Smash, won't really fight him. They'll step to him, but they're not going to really go all the way because they're like, this motherfucker might hurt me.
Yeah, he has like a weird calmness to him, where like, yo, don't fuck with me. I'm not about all that bluster. You like, yeah, if you step to me, it's going to go down. You know what I'm saying?
Yeah.
But I just feel like he's also like he's on another level and path. His mindset is completely different. Like we talked about before in the earlier episodes, like like the way he talked to Coach. He was very pragmatic. And I think he said some things to Coach where Coach was like, man, that's kind of true. It sucks that this kid kind of called me out on this stuff. It was disrespectful, but he wasn't lying about any of it.
He's very transactional. He doesn't allow the emotion. He doesn't allow the emotional component, which is one of the reasons why Coach Taylor thrives. He's able to get that emotional hook by his players. Whereas Voodoo's like, I'm just here to play ball. I see her throw the ball. We score. We win. I get money. And I get to take care of my family. That's all he cares about.
Right. Exactly. That's it. Yeah.
And he clearly hates Dillon, Texas. He's like, the food here sucks. I mean, at the end of the episode, he blows the whole fucking thing up after Buddy tries to get the investigation squashed. But Voodoo clearly is just not made for Dillon, Texas environment, like that whole vibe.
No, I think if he would have came in and if everybody would have bowed to what he wanted, it would have been a completely different story. But then again, I think, you know what, that kid still would have been the monster that he was, because he was already a pain in the ass and he got nothing, and that's why he was being the way that he was. So just imagine if you actually gave him what he wanted and acquiesced to his demands, he would probably be, yeah, you will get the wins and all that kind of stuff, but at the end of the day, it's just like the inmates are running the prison. You know what I'm saying? I hate to use that phrase, but yeah, it's just he's in charge.
For sure. And so the whole thing culminates in basically Reyes feels like, like he's been dissed by Voodoo because, he didn't really follow through and step into him. And then, so basically Matt, Searson, and Landry have a friend who we just meet this episode. I don't know if Kurt comes back, but this kid named Kurt basically mocks football. He's like, football is not that serious, blah, 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 which is a wild thing to say in in Dillon, Texas. Like, you should know better. And then he goes on the parking lot, and that's when Reyes basically beats the shit out of him.
Yeah, yeah. It's just like the Caster kid. I get it. He's supposed to be a representation of their past life.
Yeah.
Now Saracen is cool. You know what I mean? And he's just like, man, he's one of them now. Can you believe it? And he is being a dick where he's just like, yo, I don't know why you guys care so much. It's just a stupid football game. And
Yep.
if yes, Reyes definitely did not need to go out there and do what he did, but it's just like you went over there causing shit. I am not by any stretch of the imagination or means trying to justify what Reyes did to him at all. But he did walk into the Lions den and say, no one cares about your game. Basically, fuck y'all.
Well, that's the thing is like I think that and this is where it's this because the series eventually does talk about this. It actually talks about in the next episode where it talks about at the end of the day, this football shit don't matter unless you go pro. So like you think you're king
Yeah.
here in West Dillon, Texas, playing football, that's gonna fade out real quick. So
Right.
Kurt isn't wrong in what he's
Right.
saying. He's just wrong about his approach to it because he's not reading
Right.
the room that I'm saying this to a group of dudes who could easily fuck me up and the town
Right.
will cover for them, which is basically what happens with Reyes. The only thing is that Reyes lies to Coach Taylor, which is, we see how much Coach Taylor takes you at your word. And if you betray that trust, he's not the dude you want to piss off. He's not the dude
Right.
you want to, because Smash almost got that. Smash almost pissed off Taylor to the point where he's like, I don't want to fuck with you. I don't want anything to do with this kid. Luckily, Tammy was like, find another way to get him to understand what you're doing.
Mm-hmm.
Reyes, this is all about character, right? This is all about how
Right.
you handle yourself, how you treat other people outside
Integrity.
this cult of this, I don't want to say cult of personality, but like, basically the football team is like a police, squadron, right? We protect our
outside
own.
of outside of it, exactly. Yeah, the thin blue line, basically.
Yeah, that's why
the code
Saracen's
of
like,
brotherhood.
that's why Saracen's torn between these two worlds because Landry's like, well, you know what really happened because basically Reyes says that Kurt called him the derogatory slur that Voodoo called him, and
Right.
and he like went to go confront him and make him apologize, and then that's when they had a fight, so to speak, and that's why Kurt
Right.
got so jacked up. And Landry's like, that's not what happened, Matt. And Matt's just like, well, he shouldn't have been talking, blah 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 blah. And Tammy Taylor's also dealing with this because Kurt's mom comes to her for like his homework assignments because he's out of school for a while, recovering, and she's basically like, oh well, like nothing's gonna really happen because the football team's gonna cover for Reyes, and my son's just going to have
Right. I raised
this.
a good kid.
Yeah,
This isn't right. Yeah,
I
basically
mean,
guilt tripping Tammy.
Kurt's not that great. Like from the few scenes we get of him, he's kind of an asshole. Like you can tell why we just now seen him in the series and why we don't
Yeah.
really see him that much afterwards. He's not the
Yeah.
best.
But if that's it, I feel like he's no different than any other high school kid. You know what I'm saying? He just he pushed it and he got beat up.
That's true.
Yeah, and it's just I love the fight scene between I don't know if I feel like I'm jumping ahead here. Oh, well, let's go back a little bit.
Okay.
Like the when they have the news conference, that just lets you know how big the football team is in this town. Like it got news coverage. Their interview that his entire family is out there. It's
Yeah.
all over the place that hey, Reyes from the football team got arrested. What happened? You know what I mean? It's just like it just shows you like the level of scrutiny and the number of eyeballs that are just on the team and what's going on.
I mean,
And it's go ahead.
yeah.
I'm sorry.
No, it's just it's tough because right, like there's a lot of pressure on kids like Reyes and Smash to get successful enough where they can take care of their family, right? Like Reyes
Right.
keeps imploring that with the coach, like don't fuck with me, like don't fuck me over, like don't come in for the team, like I need this, right?
Right.
But it's
Yeah.
like that's a lot of pressure to put on a kid, especially a kid that maybe isn't getting the counseling or support that they really need to handle that kind of pressure. Because
Mhm.
Reyes beat up Kurt. This wasn't just like a random schoolyard fight where you can like get a few licks in and that's it. Like we go our separate ways. Like he put the kid in the hospital and it warranted him getting arrested for assault, right? Like that's a different level of fighting somebody. Well, it's not even a
Yeah.
fight.
I'm glad you brought that up. As someone who went to as a minority in an all white school or majority white school, this it was a little triggering. One, I don't like Reyes because he lied about the entire situation. And as a minority student in a majority white school, we always would get accused of lying about any racial incident anyway. So when you see this dude lying about this shit, it's just like, yo, you're a piece of shit, man. Because when the racial shit does happen, now no one believes you, or everyone always points to like, see what happened with the Reyes thing. When I was in the Air Force, there was a situation where a cadet at the Air Force Academy had said he was being racially harassed, and somebody had wrote like nigger or something on like his dormitory like his door tag or something, and it was like a big deal. Everybody's being sensitive to it, and then it turns out he lied. And it's just like,
Mm.
it just sucks because it's like, as someone who's on active duty, I'm dealing with all this racial stuff that's going on in the world, the Trayvon Martin stuff, and like I'm literally having these tough discussions about race and racism and stuff like that. And people are like, oh no, man, this I don't believe it. Half the stuff is lying. Who writes this kind of stuff? And then a story like that happens, and it's just like it totally discredits, it gives like people an out to go, see, man, none of this stuff is real. That kid lied. It's like, okay, maybe that one time. It's just like, well, you said people don't lie. It's just like, God damn it. So like this episode really hit hard for me. And I will also say that from the point of Rez is a liar. I'm not gonna give him any out on that at all. He's a piece of shit for lying. I I get why he did what he did. He wanted to fight Tatum, but he couldn't, and he took his anger out on somebody else. That was wrong. But I also noticed this too. Again, from the perspective of a minority in a majority white school, whenever white kids fight, even if it gets bloody, somebody gets a busted nose, they don't typically call the police. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
But I have noticed a trend of like whenever a black kid attacks a white kid, or whenever a black kid get into it with a white kid, all of a sudden the parents want the police involved. It's just
Oh
like,
yeah.
dude, I've seen all these fights happen. The police are never called. Now all of a sudden it seems to be taken to a whole nother level when it's a black kid. So like that was another thing that was triggering for me too. It's just like, and it's like they there's a part of me, I feel like there are certain police who love arresting black and brown kids, especially like in a school setting. It's just almost like, yeah, see, they are fucking criminals. And I know that's not the case all the time, but it was definitely something that was triggering for me, man. I don't know if what your experience was with that.
It wasn't triggering for me necessarily because, like I grew up, like in a predominantly white, actually it was like 90% white neighborhood.
Right,
But the thing is, I was always aware that I couldn't do some shit like this. Like
right,
if I beat up a kid, especially a white kid, I'm going to jail. Like
right,
there's no if
exactly.
ands or buts about it. And
Mhm.
also like I had to make sure I was in a situation where I had to make sure I was always in a situation where some people had my back. The plus side is I was a pretty likable dude. Even people that didn't like me never really like tried to threaten me or anything like that. So, but because I was always aware, like if I got into a fight or if someone wanted to beat me up, they could probably get away with it. Just because,
Right,
when you think about like, suing somebody or things like that, like it's going to be harder for my family to be able to follow through on that financially than it is for some of these other kids, right? And so I
right.
was always aware of that. Um, Ironically, it wasn't until I got out of Michigan where I started feeling like more like, oh shit, some stuff could go down. It's not going to be in my favor. Like this ain't going to be good for me. Um,
Yeah.
but definitely, I've seen students like Reyes who deflect their anger and offset it onto somebody else. I've seen
Yes.
that happen a lot, whether it's
Right.
a kid that's getting fucked up at home by an older brother or their dad, and then they come
Mhm.
to school and they're looking just to fight somebody. And I've seen that result in someone getting hurt at my
Mhm.
school. But again, I think that that's all like people dealing with other shit. I think Reyes at the end of the day probably not the best kid in general. Like just the
No,
way
they
that he quickly was willing to throw saying that Kurt was the culprit, like an instigator, the way that he was willing to lie to everyone to their face, and how
Yeah,
comfortable
lied to
he
the
was.
coach.
And
Yeah.
even like he threatens Searson. He's like, hey, like I heard like you're thinking about not following the story. Like that's not what a QB does. You know what I mean? Like this cult that I was talking about, like, we protect each other and stuff like that. And for him to already have that mentality, and we don't know how old Reyes is. We don't know if he's a sophomore or a junior. He might be a senior, possibly, but it's like that's not a good way to navigate life. I've been subbing the past few weeks, and it's grade school. It's like fourth graders up to, I think the oldest I've been subbing is like seventh, right? And the
Mhm.
way these kids go about talking to each other, talking to adults, go about just navigating conflict with one another, I'm like, this is not going to be good.
Right.
Like, and these are black and brown kids. I'm like, the world is not going to be kind to y'all. It's already not kind to y'all, and this is not going to go well at all.
Yeah. I
And
think I
that's
told you. Yep.
that's scary.
My boy quit. He said he couldn't do it, man. And that's
Oh
exactly
yeah.
what he was saying. Yeah, he was at a charter school in DC. He lasted about a month, bro. He was just like the way they just talk to each other. And he was like, I can't. He's like, I'm gonna end up getting in trouble. He's like, it's not worth it. He's like, I'm gonna end up putting hands on one of these kids because they mad disrespectful.
Yeah.
And yeah, and he's never taught before, and it was like a charter school for troubled kids, and I was like, dude, they kind of railroaded him into like thinking it was going to be something different, and that's probably not the best teaching environment to go in if you've
Mm.
never done that before, where you're dealing with like troubled, inner city youths. You've
Yeah, and I
never done
think
that.
yeah, and that's why I'm very excited to get into like the later seasons of this show, like especially when Coach goes to work at a predominantly black school in
Oh
Dillon, Texas,
yeah,
right? And
yeah.
and then you see how he handles that, and also you see how much the school benefits from having a positive male role model around,
Hmm.
but at the same time, the reason why he's able to get so many kids to follow his direction is because they know playing football might be one of the few opportunities for me to be able to get the fuck out of here.
Yeah, yeah.
And that's disheartening too.
It is. Yeah, it is. And it's just like it's all in the next episode. I think in Homecoming, Smash gets a weird taste of that.
Mm,
Realizing like, oh man, maybe I'm not who I think I am.
yeah.
But yeah,
Let's touch
this
on the
whole
themes of this episode though, like because one of the biggest themes is like honesty, right? It's like it's
right.
integrity and like because we continue the whole. I mean, Street doesn't know he's in a love triangle between him, Lila, and Tim Riggins, but
Yeah.
that's continuing to happen. Like, Lila is basically like, "Hey, I don't want to continue this with you, Tim," and he's heartbroken because, it's Mika Kelly. Mika Kelly, like, it's just like, yeah, you don't want to lose that. You don't want to go back to Tyra. You know
No,
what I mean?
yeah.
It's just like he's like, damn. And then I do like that Riggins and Street are like reconnecting again and everything like that. And they, he
Mhm.
takes them out. They go like on their little joyride and stuff like that. And um, but it just felt so icky. You know what I mean? I don't know any other word to use.
No, it's very like I feel bad for him because it's like they know what they've done, and it's like he needs it so bad. But here's the thing. Here's the fucked up thing, B. They they both kind of needed it to heal, even though it was not the right thing to do. You know what I'm saying? Because I had asked that earlier. I go, they both miss Jason, and it's just like they're kind of both sleeping with Jason in a way. You know what I mean? I don't know. It's a weird psychology going on with that dynamic.
Mm,
Tim definitely has his feelings for her. And I think like the moment Jason got hurt, it was like on some lizard brain shit, like, yo, he's no longer the alpha. He can't even hunt anymore. It's
mm,
me. I want that's the alpha female. I want her. And you gotta remember, these people, they're 15, 16
true.
years old, you know. And you said it. It's Minka Kelly, bro.
Yeah, it's pretty. Yeah, I get it. I like that's the thing is like every time I get frustrated with the storyline, I'm like, I kind
It's
of get it though. I kind of get it. You know what I
and
mean?
yeah, because it's be real, like there's nothing like when you're in high school and you got all these emotions and feelings, and you don't really, you know what it is, but you don't know what to do about it. You don't, you know what I mean? There's nothing like that girl you just got a crush on in high school, and she walk in the room, and you're just like, oh my God, like everything
Yeah.
she does just drives you crazy.
Did they call Lila in this episode the avocado? Which I was like, whoa, that's wild. But yeah, one of my notes is Mika Kelly looking great in this episode. And then of course, Street, she leans on Street, she's showing her cleavage. Street gets an erection, which she calls a visitor, which I was like, that's wild. I didn't know that Street. For some reason I always thought, even though I know in the future episodes, spoiler everybody, Street does have a kid. I didn't know that he could feel like below the waist. Well, at least his groin area. I didn't know that he actually could feel that.
Well, yeah, they get into it later on. Remember, they end up buying like the paraplegic porn tapes.
Oh, okay, yeah.
To get into more explanation into because they were saying some people's situation is different, where like they might not feel anything, but it's functional.
Yeah, I actually really appreciate like the random like details they gave. Like they've talked about basically, as of right now, it's not safe for him to even ejaculate. Like like random things like that, because I think it's very honest to show what a teenager, like especially a teenage boy that's horny as fuck, what he's going through dealing with this situation. You know what I mean? Because basically he's trying to fuck his girlfriend. They're like, don't do that right now.
You can't bust. Don't bust, young man.
Which sucks because like they were basically like it could really throw off like your body and like cause like blockage and all kinds of stuff. They're like, we don't know yet what's going on down there, so avoid it. And I'm just like, damn. And it's like, and so for me, I'm like, yeah. So for me, I'm like, man, like at first when he's asking Tim about Lila and like what she does and how he feels bad for her because they can't be intimate and stuff like that, I was like, yo, is he about to ask Tim to? When I first watched the series, I'm like, is he about to ask Tim to fuck his girlfriend?
Hey, I got you six. I got you six. Dylan forever. Plunge.
Because, but like I completely get it because like when I was in high school, like I had some beautiful girlfriends. Like I had
Brandon,
one girlfriend.
You know what, dude? Every little detail is just starting to come out. You were really him in high school. You try to act like you were just like this weird theater improv. You were out here slinging light-skinned dick out in Michigan. That's what you were doing.
I wasn't doing like I had like a really pretty girlfriend who was like mad rich and shit. And I remember being like, damn, this ain't gonna last. I was like, this ain't gonna last. It didn't at all. But I was just like, damn, it was pretty good right now. I was horny as fuck. It was like I was busting nuts before a crew practice, which was a terrible idea.
Oh my God.
When you busting nut before you have to do a 5-mile run, that is like one of the worst. I wouldn't put my worst enemy through that shit.
Oh, I'm over here dying in high school, and you over here swimming in it. Swimming in it.
But you don't know that you're swimming in it. I feel like I was like
no one liked me. Well, I didn't like me, so that's probably why.
Well, I didn't like me either, and so I think that's why I didn't realize that. Oh, like I'm actually pretty fortunate in like the opportunities that I'm having. You know what I mean? Like you need perspective to get that. But there were periods where I was like Landry trying to give love advice, even though it wasn't warranted at all. You know what I mean? Like in various episodes where Landry's like, "Oh, this is how you got to finesse a woman." It's like you have never even touched the titty, man. What are you talking about?
We did. Do you have any friends from high school still?
Friends from high school? Yeah. My
do they watch the show?
Friday Night Lights?
Yes.
No.
I wish we need somebody from your high school that knows you, that watches the show, so we can do analysis on this episode. And the thing is, Brandon, you're not telling the whole story about who you were in high school, bro. You were really the dude in high school, but you just won't admit it, or you were so oblivious to it that it's slowly coming to your mind that you were like, wait a minute, I was really that nigga in high school and didn't even realize it.
We can bring on somebody from high school. Yeah, like
yeah.
That was a weird time for me, for sure. Like, cause there was like a lot of personal turmoil and stuff like that. But then the relationships were like kind of my escape from my home life. But then at the same time, I didn't treat the relationships the best because my home life was a mess and shit like that. And so that's why I connect with so many of the different characters in the show. just because like there's a piece of me in everyone, right?
Yeah,
like
that's what's dope about that. Yeah.
yeah, like even Riggins, right? Like obviously the horniness of like fucking someone you're not supposed to be fucking, but just like how he copes with alcohol, right? Like that didn't come to play for me until senior year in high school.
Oh,
Right? Like
really?
I got drunk for the first time New Year's Eve my senior year in high school, and that ended up being, in addition to like smoking a lot of weed, like my coping mechanism for a lot of the shit I was dealing with. And the alcohol got a little out of control like in my early 20s, and then like calmed the fuck down, started going to therapy and stuff like that. But yeah, I can connect with every character in this show basically, except for Reyes. I didn't like Reyes at all.
Yeah, Reyes is wow. When I first joined the military, I met a dude in tech school who had been to rehab already for alcohol and drugs. I was like, what? He goes, yeah, man, I was an alcoholic. I was on drugs. I was just like, but you're 19. I was like, that does. He goes, yeah, I was like 14, 15, and that just blew my mind because I grew up in a very like super conservative, like lockdown Christian, like that wasn't even a thought in my mind. Like my dad could set a bottle of liquor on that table, and he would be like, touch it if you want to, and see what happened.
Yeah.
Like that's the kind of shit that how my house was. Touch that fucking bottle if you want to, and it would sit there. So I didn't understand that because like in my
Yeah.
house, it's like there was no fucking around.
Mm.
So like somebody being on drugs and like drinking your dad's liquor, that shit blew my mind. I was just like, what?
Your dad's liquor. Yeah. I
Yeah,
mean, white kids were out of control with how much they're drinking. I remember in
crazy.
middle school, my mom telling me about some kids that like raided someone's liquor cabinet and like got a hold of some pills, and like, one of them got sick and shit like that. I was like, damn, like we in seventh grade.
Yeah.
What do you
That's
need to
yeah.
escape?
That's crazy, man. Oh, I was gonna ask you too. So like the burger joint they hang out at, was there a spot like that for y'all? Or is this too cliche?
There were a few spots because in high school, a lot of kids, once you could drive, you could do off campus lunch.
Right.
And because I went to two different high schools for various things, there would be
Oh my God.
there'd be different spots, you know what I mean? But there's one place, there's a
Why?
pizza place.
Hold one
Well,
second.
yeah.
Why?
Well,
Why?
I went
Was
to
a pussy
Pioneer.
pool not big enough at the one school, Brandon? Basically.
Pioneer had the better prospects. That's where I was able to like get some traction there. Community, it was an alternate school. It was like a charter school, like at the beginning of that whole thing.
Right.
And that was, and the one girl like I was in love with, like she had a boyfriend the whole time. So like I was like, all right, well, nothing's happening here. But I went to Pioneer for mostly for theater stuff, for theater and comedy shit. And so I would be there like in my afternoons, and I also wrote crew for the Pioneer at a point. And so I would like hang out there like from lunch on. So sometimes I would meet friends. And there's a pizza joint that would it's closed now. It was part of this little chain in Michigan that we would go to. And then in downtown Ann Arbor by Community, it would be like there's like this place called Carytown, and they had like a lot of little like shops. And there was one place that had like really good burgers, and that's usually where we would get food from and stuff like that.
Mm.
Yeah, but there wasn't one like consistent place where the whole fucking school went to. You know
Yeah,
what
it
I mean?
seemed like these small town places. It's like everybody's going to the A&W on Main Street. Like
Oh
that's where
man, I
everybody,
miss A
you
and
know what I
W.
mean? Yeah,
You know they don't even have Coney dogs no more.
they don't.
Well, I went to A&W randomly in Toronto, thinking that they were going to have Coney dogs. They still have the same fries, but yeah, there was no Coney dogs.
I wonder if that was because it's Canada for some reason. I don't know.
Maybe because man, I remember I used to be really into Sonic. Like I still love Sonic, but like
Yeah.
Sonic the comics and the cartoon, and he ate Coney dogs all the time.
Mm-hmm.
And so my favorite thing to do with my nana would be she would drive me after school, especially when I was really good. She'd drive me after school. I would get a new Sonic comic book, and they would go to A&W, which had like Sonic logos and shit, and eat Coney
Mm-hmm.
dogs while I'm reading this comic. That's like the best. That's
Oh
the best
yeah,
day ever.
yeah. You get to do the things that they like. Yeah, that's really cool, man.
Yeah, man. But going back to this episode, I want to do a quick correction. I said that
Okay.
Saracen was the one that Reyes confronted. It was actually Landry, and
Yes.
Saracen didn't do anything. And I gotta give it to Jesse Plemons, man, because he is so fucking likable as Landry. Even when he does stupid shit or makes bad decisions, you still root for him. You still like him. And he did such a fucking 180 by playing that crazy ass dude Todd on Breaking Bad that I remember like being a few friends be like, Landry, no, like when he
Yeah, I
killed
know.
Andrea.
Yeah, that's so true. Yeah.
I was like,
Yeah.
God damn, this dude's cold hearted. Well, I mean, even before that, he would have killed that kid on the bike in Breaking Bad.
Yeah.
After the train heist, I was like,
Oh yeah.
oh, this is a different character for
It's a
him.
different dude. I was like, man, that's I was like, that's Landry from Friday Night Lights.
Yeah.
Yeah, he and I don't want to jump ahead, but like, yeah, Landry was great this episode. The fact that he pulled Matt aside and was like, yo, look, we known this guy since seventh grade. Like he didn't give up. You know what I mean? It was just like,
Yeah.
yo, bro, like, come on, man. Like, you gotta do something here, man. Like, this is not cool.
Yeah. I went through something similar with like I would call this kid more of an acquaintance. Like we had homeroom in high school where like, we like hung
Right.
out with the same kids like for the first period and like we would go on, like little
Take
trips and stuff like
attendance and
that.
shit. Yeah.
Yeah. And he and I like this kid, like we met freshman year, his name was Nick, and we were like cordial. We were cool, like, right? Like we would hang out occasionally, like outside
Mhm.
of school, but like it wasn't like we were besties or anything by any stretch of the imagination. And then I was cooler with this kid, Sammy, and had like a little posse with him and stuff like that. Sammy out of nowhere, like the beginning of junior year, beat the shit out of Nick. And supposedly it was about a girl or something like that. I didn't quite understand, but he like basically beat up Nick to the point where like Nick was in the hospital and Sammy got like charged with assault and shit like that. I don't know what ended up happening with all that, but I ended up actually not hanging out with both of them after that. Because I
Mm.
didn't feel like picking a side, but two, I was also like, neither one is telling me like kind of what happened. And we're not cool enough where I'm gonna like prod it out of you and like fucking interrogate you to get the real story. So I'm like, let me just remove myself from the whole thing. And I've always kind of randomly thought about that. Like, did I handle that the right way? You know what I mean? Like,
I would say you did.
okay,
Yeah, I could see like if you grew up with one dude and somebody was really your friend, they had stayed the night. Yeah, you know what I mean, that kind of thing. You know, the kind of stuff, the kind of bonding things that you do as a kid that make you like, yo, that's my best friend. You know what I'm
yeah,
saying? Like, I went to your birthday party, I stayed the night. You know what I mean?
yeah.
We helped each other fix our bikes, like that kind of like kiddie bond shit. Yeah, if it's nothing like that, and you see that they're fighting, especially over a girl, and you don't know, I think you did the right thing by going like, you know what? These dudes, while I'm cooler with him, they seem to be on some weird shit, and I could probably be next if they're fighting over a girl. I'm out.
Mm,
Yeah.
yeah, yeah.
You saw. I think
I,
you saw the writing on the wall. If that's the right term, the phrase to use. Yeah, you saw nothing good coming from that, and you're like, I'm out.
yeah, it was almost like I don't know. I used to think that I was very fickle with friendships because of stuff like that. But it's also like, yeah, but if I also don't agree with it, but it's also not worth it enough for me to like confront you and check you on it. Like, I didn't feel like I need to like confront Sammy about beating up this kid because he's already dealing with the consequences legally. You know what I
Yeah,
mean? What is
yeah,
Brandon going to do to make you feel worse or reflect
yeah,
better about it? You know what I mean?
yeah. My 16-year-old opinion. Yeah, okay. It's just
Like,
like, yeah, you know what I mean. Yeah, exactly. You're dealing with real legal shit that I don't even understand. So
mm,
what could I add? And you know what? That's probably what it is too. Like, especially at that age when the police are involved, you're like, I'm done. Like, I don't want anything to do with the police. You know what I mean?
yeah.
Because
So I got. Oh, yeah.
that's smart. Yeah, you did the right thing, dude. That's the right thing
Okay.
to do.
I appreciate it, Chris. I appreciate it. Folks, let us know. Send us an email if I did the right thing. Friday Night Lights Rewind at gmail.com. Let me know. Did I
Yes.
fuck up? Did I do the right thing?
Yeah. Yeah, I like the fact that Landry did this though, because he was just like, "Yo, man, this isn't cool." I will be real too. I like the fact that he confronted Rez.
Yes.
And what I liked about the whole situation, I really felt like the progression of it seemed very realistic, to where like Voodoo kind of started it. That's how it started. But like you said, high school people's fears are crazy. They didn't want to fuck with Voodoo. They didn't. So like you said before, he veers off. Hey, I'm gonna attack this kid. I know I can beat him up. Take my arrogant route on him. The whole Sorensen and Landry and Castor crew story. Yo, how you gonna let this happen to our dude? It just shows you like how complicated these things really are. Because from the outside looking in, they had the news conference. What happened? Castor called the Mexican kid a wetback. You know what I mean? That's what everybody else sees. But
Yeah, that term was
no,
said a lot in this episode.
it is.
It was said a lot.
I don't like saying it either. But yeah, so and we got to think that if it was said, it's been said. If this was real, it's just like, yo, tensions are up right now. It's
Well,
early.
that Yeah. And also, I just want to comment real quick on the derogatory term we're using. That's basically directed towards like Hispanic people, particularly like of Mexican descent. Just
Right.
because I find it so interesting that we're saying it, but like, and people like will be willing to say that. But if memory serves, they never dropped the N bomb on this show.
No.
And it's like a weird thing that society knows like how much weight that word carries, but they're
Yeah.
willing to say other derogatory words, but yet black people are prosecuted the hardest, even though we know that like they've been through so much that we won't even say a word that used to be used to describe us
Yeah.
frequently and
Yeah.
address us as human beings. It's just really ironic. That's all I'm just
Yeah.
pointing out the irony of
No,
that.
it is funny. I forgot what comic that was. They were trying to say like it was something word is worse than the N word, and they were trying to say this on the news. And a comic was like, you won't even say the word right now. He was like, you're saying N word. He's like, you're saying the other word. So
Mhm.
how can that word be worse when you won't say the N word? He's like,
Yeah.
you won't even say it. So he was like, your whole argument is it's a moot point. But that's true too, man. How like even oppression comes in scales. Like, yeah, we
Yeah.
can use, but there are certain other groups of people where like if we said it, if we use a derogatory term against them, this whole shit would get shut down. You know what I
Mhm.
mean?
Yeah.
So, and I'm not trying to be a conspiracy theorist or anything like I'm not saying it's wrong, but we know there are just certain groups that you cannot talk about because of history.
100%.
Yeah. And
100%.
I don't think it's fair, but it is what it is.
No, and I think that that's also like yeah, that's this show is just so interesting, like how it brings up conversation, like and goes in a bunch of different directions, like the racial dynamics of everything, where it's like no one. I think people aren't willing to call Voodoo out on all of his shit publicly because of his circumstance, right? Because he's a refugee from Katrina, because he's like
He's
this,
black.
he's this black man that like they just don't want to be seen like talking shit about a dude like this, right? Because
Yeah.
just from a public relations perspective, it's just not a good look, even if Voodoo is a huge piece of shit. Like,
Yeah. And yeah.
because he's on defense, right? Like they changed him to be on the defensive line, right?
Yeah. Yeah. And they know he has dirt on them, so they really can't fuck with him too much.
That's true because that comes back to fuck them up because
You
the
know what I
board
mean?
just say that he was eligible and allows Dylan to keep their victory from the previous game, but then they circle back at the end and be like basically Voodoo went back to Louisiana and because the school reopened, but also he told a reporter about his experience with Dylan and that
Yeah.
we recruited him
Yeah.
and shit. But it's just like, my bad. Like that answer is so great. It's just like, yeah.
He
It's
don't
like,
care. But that's him being vindictive. And to go back to the slur, I don't think any white character said it at all. Think if you think about it, Voodoo said
mm,
it and Reyes said it. So even that might have been said multiple times. They made
yeah.
sure that a black person said it and a Hispanic person said it. And I never thought about how. Let me ask you this about the episode. If that episode, an episode like this came out today, this could be seen as some weird, almost like right wing white apologist thing where like, oh look, they made the Mexican lie about this racism and they made the black kid say it, and then a white kid got beat up, and you know what I mean? If through today's lens, but like when this came out in 2006, this was just like, hey, look how complicated these stories are, and kids telling these stories. He didn't want to get in trouble. Like today, it would have so many more like political ramifications and what white TV creators are trying to say about black kids and all this kind of shit.
Well,
You think
that's
so?
that's where I get concerned about this reboot because I feel like there's such a lack of nuance and communication and community in the world now, and maybe that's why the world does need a Friday Night Lights reboot. But I think it would be hard to execute a storyline like this now. I think there would be too many people that have their own personal biases and agenda, and they would not be able to see the different perspectives that this episode in particular is presenting to us as an audience, right? Like,
Yeah.
and I think like we're seeing like the dynamics here, right? Because I think it just came out like recent with this like recent election and stuff like that with, a large group of, a large number of Hispanic people voting for Trump, even though,
Right.
it seems conflicting based on like what they should stand for. But it's like, oh no, like we agree with that. And, my wife is Puerto Rican and she's always like open about how Puerto Ricans, other Hispanics are very much like white aligned. They do not see themselves as people of color.
Oh
They very much
no.
are aligned with whiteness. I'm not saying that's all Hispanics
No,
and
no,
stuff
no,
like
no,
that.
no.
It's very anecdotal what I'm talking about, but it doesn't
Right.
exist.
No,
And
I
so
agree.
with Reyes being like on the same team of like Smash and Riggins and things like that, when Reyes was like confronted by Landry, correct me if I'm wrong, there weren't any black people with him. It was like light skinned Hispanic dudes. So it's like, okay, well, you know what I mean? I'm not saying that that's fully what is going on with this character and everything like that, but it
Mhm.
is something worth pointing out that even though we're all kind of similar, like those racial dynamics, even if we
Oh
all look
yeah.
alike and stuff like that, are very prominent. When I was in Dominican Republic, the terrible service and like vindictive looks I was getting from people that look like me was it was so offensive and egregious. Like it ruined my experience at this resort because I'm like, I look like you. Why are you ignoring? Like, I'm
Yeah,
trying.
that's why they're mad.
Yeah, but
Yeah.
it's
Yeah.
it's frustrating. Sorry.
I just real quick. I did a week of 2 weeks of shows in the Bahamas, man, and I did not enjoy myself for the first 4 or 5 days. Like I hated being one of the few black people at this resort. No one was rude to me or anything like that, but I felt a
Mm,
lot of guilt. I was just like, I felt out of
mm,
place, but I made sure to be very, very nice to everybody that worked there. Uh, I spent a lot of time just talking to the different people that work there, just joking and laughing with them, saying how what they were up to, stuff like that, just trying to build a rapport. And just hearing what their thoughts about how they felt about like us coming over there, what they thought about interracial couples, just all types of stuff. It was real interesting to hear
yeah.
what they had to say. But I agree with you. My sister is her husband is Puerto Rican. My brother-in-law is Puerto Rican. I'm from Rochester, New York. Huge Puerto Rican um, population there, and you got to be real careful around white passing Puerto Ricans because yeah, there are a lot of Trumpers, and I'll say, I got to be careful how I say this, but I'll say this: I don't fuck with white passing Hispanic cops. They are some of the shittiest
Oh
fucking
yeah.
people. You know
Yep.
what I'm saying? It's just like
Yep.
it's got to be like, yo, Ramirez, you ain't white, motherfucker. Okay, so relax. Because they could be
Yeah.
some of the and I run into that in the military too. Like some of these like super right wing like Mexican dudes in the military. It's just like, bro, you can relax on this Republican shit. They don't want your ass here either. So like, stop with all this American flag, fucking don't tread on me shit on your truck. They looking at you laughing, bro. You pushing that shit, and they don't even want you here. Like,
100%. I mean, I think we'll see how everything pans out, but
yeah,
I know a lot of folks who were in who were in that same boat, who were former cops or current cops, and they had parents that don't really speak or read English, and it's like, hey, depending on, especially in New York, what Mayor Adams is willing to do, you know, if they're walking down the street going to the grocery store and they get stopped by another cop or ICE agent and they try to talk to them, they can't communicate. Guess what? You may not be able to see mom for a while, or you
yeah,
might have to pull some strings to be able to get mom out of
yeah.
what I'm just going like worst case scenario about what might be happening,
Right, 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 right.
but
Yeah,
it's very possible. But
right.
um, I think the thing with Reyes is
Oh, yeah.
I don't like it's at the end of the day, I don't think there was a good outcome for him either way. I think he
No.
fesses up to what truly happened. He's still in trouble. If he tries to deflect it to Voodoo, that doesn't really help because Voodoo, is out. He's out of Dylan by the end of this episode. So you try to pin it on, this guy pissed me off. So like I just lost it and I kind of blacked out. That doesn't help you either, right? Because Voodoo's nowhere to be found. So, I think that Reyes was backed into a corner and
He
he just did
was.
not handle it well because at the end of the day, it's not like his teammates stood up for him. It's not like his teammates were like at that press conference, like, "Hey, Reyes is a good dude. Like he made a mistake." Because maybe if he had come full, like out with the truth at the beginning, maybe, just maybe, the team and Coach Taylor would have stood up for him and been like, "Hey, he's a kid. He made a stupid mistake." Because at the end of the day, he is a teenager, and teenagers make
Right.
terrible, terrible decisions, right? And maybe
Yeah.
if he made amends with Kurt, his family paid for the medical bills, things like that. There could be a way to, at least salvage the
Yeah.
situation. But because
That's
he lies to Taylor, and Searson eventually feels compelled to tell Taylor the truth,
right.
that's when Coach Taylor's like, "Well, now you're off the team. I don't
Yeah, you
trust
gotta
you.
go.
You gotta go." And
Right.
basically, by him doing that, it's going to tell the public what they need to know about what Reyes' true character
Right.
is.
Yeah, exactly. I thought about that too because I was like, man, if he would have just come clean, because in my mind, I think if especially if he was a junior, I think a fair punishment would be you're off the team for the year, but you got to come help. You still you're like the team manager. You're going to be doing all the cleaning and all this kind of stuff because you need to be around to see what you're missing, but it's not going to be fun. And then maybe next year we can address you coming back next year, but this year you will no longer address, but you will show up. You will be the team manager, and you will not get to play. And you got to apologize and all that kind of shit, and then we'll see what's up. But yeah, man, he really was backed into a corner, and I think what I think he realized what did him in is the fact that he sent this kid to the hospital. Now, if he just kind of like beat him up a little bit, then he go, you know what? Yeah, voodoo pissed me off, and I went out there and I punched Kirk, and that was fucked up. I shouldn't have done that. That could have been a different story. But I think, and then coach 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 has his back. Then they get on the news because you've probably been in a situation too where like, okay, somebody lies, it's like cool, and then somebody bigger finds out, and it's just like, damn it, all right, now this lie is no longer just a little white lie.
Yeah.
Now like people are getting involved, and this is way worse than what we plan on it being. And I think once the news got involved and all that kind of stuff, and he went to the hospital, he was fucked. You know what I mean?
Yes.
He was fucked.
Yeah, for sure. That's the thing too. Is like also, I always think there's something else going.
They
Like I'm
also
not.
said Reyes had an issue with anger. Remember, they said he had
Yeah,
some
that's what
issues
I'm saying.
before.
Like that's what I'm saying. You have to have some type of anger issues. I mean, you're already like kind of towing the line when you assault somebody in any way, and it's
Yeah,
not like it's not agreed upon fight. Like if you both have your fists up and you're about to go toe to toe, that's a different thing than like just basically sucker punching a kid and then stomping him out, right?
yeah.
And
He beat the shit out of that kid,
because
man.
that's what I'm saying. Like, get 2 licks in the face, you're a football player. Like, that's gonna hurt that kid. Walk away. But the fact that
Right.
he kept beating him, and the players had to pull them off, who knows how bad like Kirk could have been messed up. We're talking
Yeah.
like because stuff like that, like that can really fuck up kids. Like, whether it's internal bleeding or permanent injuries, broken bones. Um,
Yeah.
some kids get like really fucked up with like you kick
Yeah.
them in certain areas. You know what I
Yeah. You
mean?
kick people in the head. You're not really thinking like, yo, you can do permanent damage. You're not thinking about that shit when you're 15. So, yo, you can really hurt somebody. Even when you punch and knock somebody down, when they fall to the ground, it says like, yo, you can kill somebody if you knock them out and they hit their head the wrong way, they could die.
Exactly. That's one of the reasons why, like, like in a way you could say I'm a scared nigga or whatever the fuck, but I really like am hesitant to get in fights just because one, I don't really like I'm not a trained fighter, so I don't know what I'm capable of doing.
I don't even
And then
believe you.
and then the other way, you don't know like how
You know,
like
yeah.
sometimes when people are really like, have you ever gone out like to a bar or like an event or anything like that, and it's just one person that clearly wants to fight somebody. You don't know what's going on with them, but clearly they're amped up and they want to hurt somebody. You
Well,
do
oh,
not want to get
yeah,
involved with that person because
yeah,
you don't know what they're capable of. You don't know like
yeah.
if they're just going to be a one and done, I'm gonna punch you and knock you out, that's it, or if they're going to go like nuts and basically take out all their fucking anger from their entire fucking life out on you.
Right. And then exactly the next thing you know, somebody's in jail or prison because somebody got seriously hurt or died. You know what I mean? And now here you are, you just a regular guy working a job, and here you are now in jail for
Yep.
4 or 5 years over a fight that happened, you know?
Yeah.
And like I watch a lot of prison
Yeah.
documentaries, man. Yo, prison is no joke.
Yeah.
I am
Yeah.
not built for that shit. But
I
yeah,
try to do a
ugh.
joke. I try to do a bit about have you ever seen Scream?
Mhm.
That's one of my favorite like franchises. And it's just like crazy. Like Drew Barrymore's character got killed all because she wouldn't date this one dude whose mom whose mom left after his dad cheated. Like she got gutted, like in one of the worst possible ways. She died in one of the worst, most painful ways,
Because she
all for
said
some
no.
shit that she's not directly involved in at all.
Yeah, that's
You
so
know,
funny. Yeah, that is funny.
it's but like I think not enough people either like remembered Scream or didn't want to like think about Drew Barrymore getting gutted where they could
It's,
laugh. But it's like, hey, that's
yeah,
you
when
just
you
chilling
boil
at
it,
home eating popcorn.
yeah, when you boil it down, like that's what happened to her.
Yeah,
You know what I
it's
mean?
fucking nuts.
That's
It's nuts.
crazy.
We gotta
Oh
start
yeah.
rating this episode, but can we talk about how Street starts noticing Lila and Tim's whole dynamic
Yes.
at the end? He watches them hug and
Yeah.
kissing a little bit and stuff, and then he does that sad roll and the
Yeah.
chair down the hallway. And I was like,
Yeah.
man, Street just wants to.
I felt so bad. It's just like he lost his legs and now he lost his girl. He just losing everything. You know what I mean? Lost his scholarship. He lost his status,
Yeah,
everything. And then yeah, he's been betrayed. He's betrayed by his body. Now his best friend and his girlfriend have betrayed him. You know what I mean? Man.
it's tough, man. It's tough, and that's why like he goes through a darker he goes through a pretty dark period in like a later season, but I mean he's going through a dark period right now, but
Right.
he does come through. I think that's that's not a spoiler for people that maybe are watching and listening to us in real time with the series, but
Mhm.
it is good sometimes to know that these people are going to be okay, because I think in this current climate it's very easy to see the storyline going a very very dark path and almost like
Right.
because if we're being real, there's a lot of people that would probably take their own lives or do
Oh,
something,
dude, yeah, come on, yeah, this kid. But that's what I like about Street's character because like he does get down in the dumps, but you also even though we never really get to see him as a all-state quarterback that's going to Notre Dame, you see the tenacity and the
yeah.
drive when he gets something in his mind, like yo, like the quad rugby thing, he was so fucking annoying. Like asking for
Mm,
extra, it's just like, okay, now I see what Jesus Christ, you know what I mean? This overly determined, you know what I mean?
yep,
But that's what got him to be where he was in the position to be when he was able-bodied, you know?
yep.
And what's crazy is like even as a watcher of the show, there were times where I'm like, come on, man, be realistic. Be realistic.
Mm,
And it's not even a real thing. And I'm like, this kid has got too many aspirations. He's being annoying, but that's what I would want to see from my kid. You know what I
yeah.
mean? That's how you should be. Fuck that. Like, why sit around there and wallow in the shit you can't change? You know?
100%. I mean, I think that's like the overall idea of football in this community. It's just so revered that it skews your mind of how the world works at times. And so I think Street's journey of learning that not everything's about football, not everything's about the aspiration I had with this one thing that I'm good at. Because it stopped me, it prevented me from seeing the other skills that I have, the other things I can
Right.
bring to the table,
Yeah.
right? Like,
Yeah.
him being a good man ends up being something that's very beneficial to his career later on. Him having
Right.
a strong moral compass ends up being a very good thing for him.
Right.
And so, you know, he's starting to learn like who his true friends are, because and like also like who truly is going to care about him beyond everything, and I think that he also gives a lot of people grace, and he gets a lot of grace too. And I think that that's one of the beautiful things about friendships and just being human. No one's perfect. And
Right.
I think that I know where this whole dynamic between Street, Riggins, and Lila's going, and that's why I can appreciate it. But if I were like a fresh watcher right now, just like not unsure where the storyline's going, I'd be frustrated as fuck right now.
And see, and yeah, and I was gonna say that's why this show is so good because we know where it is gonna go, and like at least I know for like it's funny because it's like with football that like the first 20 plays are scripted and all that kind of shit.
Yep.
Just like I'm pretty sure like with this, they know exactly like everything was so thought out because they take you on this journey of like Jason like finding out about Lila and Riggins and being down, but at the right time finding the quad rugby and that pushing him and like you know what I mean. It just really
Yep.
when you know the whole story, you can really see how, especially because I'm starting to write more now. You can
Mm,
see how it all flows. But man, this is like we're really starting to get into like why this show is so fucking good. It's
it's
it's so good.
It's so good. So
Yeah.
with that, let's talk about our ratings. So, folks, if this is your first time listening to this podcast, definitely go back and listen to the previous episodes. But we have an on the bench recommendation, which is when we put a character who's done some egregious or problematic stuff, and we put them on the bench. So, Chris, who is your on the bench character or characters?
We are okay. So I never count Voodoo, but obviously him. But Reyes, man, I gotta bench Reyes. Obviously, not being for being one a because he's apparently a leader and a great football player. You know what I mean? He
Mhm.
has influence on the team. So like for him to do that was just not cool, and to do it to an innocent person, not cool. As a leader on the team, not cool. You know,
Yeah,
just bad all around.
I agree. I agree. Reyes definitely he's the villain of this episode for sure.
He
You
really
know,
is.
he because he felt in a way like kind of cucked by Voodoo. He then took it out on this like kid that had a quick snide comment. And it's like, you can't just go about doing that, especially if you're trying to be a pro athlete or pro anything, because you're always going to
Right.
have haters, detractors, things like that. And if you try to fight every single one of them, like if you assault every single one of them, you're not going to have anybody rooting for you because we're going to be like, this
Exactly.
motherfucker's a psychopath. So, yeah, Reyes, Bobby Bull Reyes is on the bench for this episode.
On
Um,
the bench.
Now, what
Oh,
about
you know,
MVP? Oh, what happened?
one last thing for Reyes, because I feel like you have recognized that he's got something else going on at home and shit like that. I will say I did feel a little bad for him because I feel like maybe with the anger issues, maybe football something that was a positive thing for him, but now it's gone. You know what I mean? Because I
Yeah.
really feel like he probably did need that. But and that's one of those tough calls that a
Yeah.
coach needs to make, where it's just like, yo, this kid needs to learn consequences. This probably does work for them, but like I can't have them on the team. They need to learn.
Yeah, and that's the unfortunate part about life, right? Is that there's
Yeah.
going to be people that you see or you hear about, or even you may know personally that made some bad decisions and that impacted their entire life. And that can lead to a lot more bitterness. It can lead to growth at the same time, but usually it's going to lead to bitterness. It's going to lead to people
Right.
being like, I didn't get the life that I'm supposed to get because of this one thing. And for all we know, this, and I think this is where a lot of people um struggle to interpret their beliefs later in life, or like like whether that's politically or um how they see things culturally. When someone like Reyes goes through this, I think they're going to have deep resentment for rich white people. I think they're going to have like not rich white people, because I don't think Kurt was that rich, but for he's going to have resentment for white people because basically
Yeah.
Kurt filing charges and all this stuff like ruins his
Right.
life. I think he's going to have deep resentment for black people because Voodoo at the end of the day is the big
Oh
bad
shit.
in
Yeah,
his
he was a
life.
racist. Yeah.
Yeah, I think Reyes has a dark, like if Reyes was a real person, I'd be very very concerned about where their place is going to be in society and how they're going to navigate the world.
Yeah. You know what I feel like, honestly, where Reyes ended up in the Marines in Iraq, and guess what? He comes back later on as a fucking cop. Boom. That's
If
that
he comes
guy.
back.
Yeah. Yeah, that's true too. But that's that guy's life. Man, can I say this real quick too?
Yeah,
I was thinking about this because I was like, man, where do a lot of these white dudes start to not like black men and black dudes? And for a lot of them, it starts with sports, man. That's what I realized. You know what I mean?
mm,
Because like as a young teenager, most of us we want to be athletes and all this kind of stuff, and then they find out early on, like, oh shit, most
I'm
of
not
us
the best
aren't.
one.
I'm not the best one, and like, oh, most of these guys are black. They're faster than me. They're this. That's what I noticed going to private schools and stuff like that. And we would play these city schools, and that's something that really fucked them up. Is because here I am going to this privileged white school, and then they would go into like Brent Franklin and Marshall and all these poor, dangerous high schools, and just get absolutely destroyed in sports. I mean, people will be laughing at us. I mean, because
Yeah,
we're the white school, so they always felt belittled, and it's just like we got more than they do, and but they always just felt emasculated in sports, man. And I think for a lot of these white dudes, it shit starts in high school and it starts in sports. Their disdain for us, man, it really
I,
does.
I I think you're absolutely right in regards to like sports and athleticism, and I think
Yeah,
it also is
and
cultural
it's not all of
dynamics
them.
too.
Yeah,
But I think it's also cultural dynamics too. Black people are just cool as fuck.
yeah,
We create cultural milestones and like trends. That's why TikTok, whenever you see these big titty Hispanic looking white girls or whatever the fuck, that all started with black women on
right.
TikTok. And it's just that they've been able to like find these women that have such low followings and be able to capitalize on their dances and create their own trends and shit. It's wild because a lot of these girls that have all these views and these followers, they're not even on beat. That's how you know this
Yeah,
shit it's co-opted. But you know, that's a
it really
conversation
is.
for that's a
Yeah,
deeper
yeah,
conversation for another time because I'm sure we're going to be talking about a lot of this stuff again,
yeah.
starting with season 4.
Yes. Oh, and just real quick too. So if they redo an episode like this with the reboot, I think because society has changed, they will show different aspects of something like this. It won't be because this was written from a 2006 perspective.
Yeah.
If they redo it 2025, I think we would get to see those
Mhm.
different avenues of like, oh, this is some racist thing, and why y'all trying to make it look like this. I think they would show all those different perspectives in
Mhm.
a situation like this.
But do they interesting. Do you think though the reboot will revisit like will redo stories from the original series? I feel like
No,
they have to do something completely different. I feel like
they are. They already said that. It's a
yeah.
reboot in the universe. It's not the same people. None of that. It's
Yeah, it's gonna be really interesting how they do it. It really is because I think there's an opportunity for it to be great, and I think there's an opportunity for it to really um, meet
we'll
the
see.
moment that the country needs. I think this potential reboot has the possibility to have the emotional hook of like that fucking Tracy Chapman, Luke Bryan's fast
Mhm.
car, Luke Holmes fast car
Yeah,
performance. You know, what I mean, we're for
yeah,
the first time in a long time, it felt like people were had the same feeling about something. Everyone had an emotional reaction to that performance and felt a sense of community about this beautiful song. And these two different, you know, this artist paid homage to the original creator. That's it's such a beautiful moment that a lot of people still talk about from the Grammys.
right.
And I
Mhm.
feel like because of the dynamics that come to play with like, you know, this series, it could meet that moment. But at the same time, you need to have a really good writing team. You have to have a really good cast in order to make that
Yeah,
happen. And
I think
sometimes it's lightning in a
yeah,
bottle.
I think it's gonna be dope. I think it could be dope, especially if they kind of use a framework and try to capture what they captured in what they did in this first series and not try to recapture it, but you know what I mean, like don't try to do what you did the first time, but just embrace the moment and try to like maybe embrace the essence, the feel, but don't try to do that again. You know, all you can really try to do is maybe recreate the feeling, but you're not going to get the exact same thing back. I think with all the stuff going on right now, this still it's very doable because
Mm,
there was still racial stuff going on. You had the war going on, so they're gonna have
yeah,
all those stories that are gonna pull at people. They are. They're gonna probably
100%.
have like the episode where like, oh, do you want to go to that school? They're kind of right wing over there. That could be a story where it's just like, hey, you're the black quarterback going to this white school where they're real Trumpy or whoever the character may be, and what they're dealing with as a black uh football player going to that school where some weird Trumpy shit has gone on. So I think all of it's there. I think it's there. And like you said, hopefully they get it right. But we can't try to go back and redo all this stuff. Like the whole paralyzed thing. Like they're not gonna do that again. None of that. You can't do that again.
Yeah, yeah. Well, I mean, we'll stay tuned on what's going on with the reboot as we get
Yeah.
news. You know, there's very little as the time of this recording and stuff like that. Peter Berg, though, if you listen,
Yeah. But you
hit up
are.
us, hit us up. We'll do like
Yeah.
a little quick radio voices for you on the Dylan radio station, talking about whichever coach you got in there. We'll do it.
Yeah, social media has changed. Like I think it's going to be a lot different, man. And think, what about this? Do you think that knowing when the show was and what their target demographic was at that time, and like, do you think they're going to consider like, hey, the people who watched this when it aired, they're now 30 something years old, so we should it could be a little bit more parent focused because they know their original audience are now in that stage of their life where like it's a little bit lean more towards that. We don't know.
I think so. I think if I were I fucking Peter Berg, I swear to God, if you listen to this and you take my
Let's hit
idea,
him. We should hit him up, bro.
they already have ideas. They already know what the show is. It would be so dope and really interesting if the show followed a coach, an assistant coach that's promoted to head coach after watching the head coach have a disastrous season and get basically publicly shamed out of town. Because, we've always heard of that like as a threat to Coach Taylor, right? But it'd be actually interesting to see the pilot episode, that coach literally be chased out of town and then the assistant coach is promoted.
Yeah.
And you see like that intensity. You see like really what it's like to be in the thick of that and trying to get buy-in from your players who like maybe like dismissed you because you were an assistant coach or whatever. And like, the community is still skeptical because you're like, oh, we've had a rough season, blah, blah, blah. I think that's a really interesting story to tell.
Yeah.
Because Coach Taylor always came through, even when he took over East Dillon. And we'll talk about that when it comes to pass.
Man, he's such a good dude. Because I was gonna say he put his money where his mouth was with the jerseys. Wrote the check. But anyway, So all right, who's your MVP?
MVP character for me in this episode, it's
you know who it is.
It's gotta be Searson.
Really?
I mean, I could say Landry for sure, but Searson at the end of the day, he has to get over his anxiety and his fear of the ramifications of him ratting on Reyes, and he tells Taylor the truth. He tells he truly takes on the leader role, and it's like, Coach Taylor, this is the truth of what happened. He stands up for his friend. He stands up for what's right, and I don't take that for granted, especially being a teenager and having so much social pressure to follow the mold and follow, and protect the inner guard. I always love people that are willing to risk it all for the right thing.
Right, and that's why I picked Landry. And this one,
but Landry has less to lose though. Landry's on the outside looking in.
Oh shit! I didn't, but you know what?
Still go with Landry though. Still go. Yeah, I don't want to dissuade you. But.
No, I didn't think about that. But I also felt like that was also his thing too, because like I felt like Landry really got out of character. He was just like, yo, he went to the point of like, yo, I'm about to fight this dude. You know what I mean? Like he put it all on the line. He risked his friendship with Matt. So I can't say that he didn't have as much to lose, because Matt had football and all that was going to come with that. Matt, I mean, so Landry had Matt and Castor. And he was like, yo, fuck that. If you're not gonna do the right thing, then me and you not gonna be cool anymore. And he literally jumped on Reyes's back. And we always seen Landry as the cool, level-headed one. And for him to risk getting in trouble to protect his friend Castor to the point where Matt was like, yo, now my boy is acting out of character. All because I'm not doing what's right. So that was my perspective. And I gave Matt the game ball for stepping up and doing the right thing. But to me, fucking Landry was like the one that was like, yo, he put it all out there, man. He did.
Okay.
That's me.
So you're doing Landry for MVP character, and then you're doing Zach Guilford for game ball performance?
God, I keep getting it backwards. For performance. I thought Landry, for performance-wise, was great because we got to see the range. We got to see some anger from him. Jesse Plemons, some anger. So yeah, MVP. I got it back. MVP, Matt, for doing the right thing. Game ball performance, Landry. Yeah, sorry.
Okay, no problem. I mean, those are all good choices. For me, yeah, I think I'll go with Jesse Plemons too for game ball performance. I think that he just has such a great range, and it reminded me of how great of an actor he's grown into be. From this, he already was really great as Landry. It's such a memorable character, and that's because of his performance. But also, like, it reminded me, like, man, he's a fucking fantastic actor.
And when I watched this episode, I was like, oh, this is the first time, because I liked Landry because he was just cool. I related to that character. He seemed wholesome, and then to see this side of him, I was just like, oh, this is a different type of friend. Because every time I see Landry, I'm always like, this is the type of friend my parents wanted me to have. Minus he killed a guy for trying to, but
season 2 gets a little wild.
Yeah, that's a little jump in the shark. But as far as like integrity and doing the right thing, and Landry is the guy that we as your parents wanted you to be around. That guy, his dad's a cop, just a trustworthy
Mhm.
kid, doesn't get in trouble. Yeah, and for him to get like that, I felt like he's yeah.
Okay. Okay, good. And so now we're going to give a final score for episode 6, El Accidente. Folks, our score range is from 1 to 10, with 1 being a drunk Riggins puking on the field and 10 being a Coach Taylor Hall of Fame speech. So, Chris, what's your rating for episode 6,
Uh,
season
I'm gonna
1?
give I'm gonna give this an 8.
Okay.
I'm gonna give this one 8. Yeah, because yeah.
Yeah, I'm gonna give it I was thinking like a 7, but an 8.
Oh
Eight's
really?
fair. Eight's fair. Yeah. Just because again the Riggins Lila street stuff, it does kind of kill the momentum a little bit. Where you're like, damn, I want to get back to this whole drama with Reyes, and I want to know what's going on with Voodoo. Like, is the team going to lose this game? Blah blah blah. But at the end of the day, I know what the payoff is, and
Okay.
so it still doesn't dilute the quality of the show. Doesn't dilute
No.
the performances and storytelling of this episode. It's just not as tight as some of the previous ones we've watched. But they're not all going to be tens, right? That'd be insane if they were all
No,
fucking tens. But
because I feel like what they're trying to do is they're trying to lull you up and down. So I feel like this is there's a lot of shit going on. The tension is up, but for other reasons. And with the homecoming episode, it's just like all the stuff we want to get out is going to come out, but they're building tension other ways. And I forgot to ask you one question: how the fuck is Voodoo still on the team? That's what I
I
have in
was
my notes.
I was wondering that too. I think it's because they don't want. I think it's for PR reasons. I think they, with this investigation, you don't want to piss off Voodoo because at the end of the day, you need him to. If he had to testify, you need him to play ball. No pun intended.
Yeah,
And
yeah.
because Voodoo just like his fights out of school reopened, he's just like, I'm out. Also, fuck Dylan, and they recruited me
Yeah, I just
illegally.
don't see. Yeah, because like the whole thing of him like getting thrown out the game, coach was like, you're done," changing the plays. I just don't see how he was able to even just stay on the
Yeah.
team. You know what I
I mean,
mean?
he
But
just got demoted heavily, and like Voodoo
that's
can't
true.
afford to not play football at all.
Right.
So it's basically like
Yeah.
they're all miserable in that arrangement at
Yeah.
now.
And you're right. I for some reason that escaped me too. Like you can't just let him go under this investigation because that's gonna look weird as shit too. But
Be a
yeah.
huge flag,
Big,
huge
huge,
flag.
huge flag. Okay. All right. Didn't think about that. All right, man. So yeah, man. That
All
was
right.
El Accidente. That was great.
Yeah, absolutely. And folks, you can follow the show on social media platforms, Friday Night Lights Rewind. Hit us up at Friday Night Lights Rewind at gmail.com with any questions, comments, concerns, or again, let me know if I was right. And, not being friends with either one of the culprits in that one situation from my school. Tell
Who
me the
swept
truth.
in? You
Yeah, tell
did.
me the truth, yeah. And leave a 5-star review on your favorite podcast application. We'll read it on future episodes. And yeah, man. Guys can follow me at Frodo_Blackens on all social media platforms. I got a Drum Black History Tour, going to be hitting up some cities. Be sure to check that out at FrodoBlackens.com. And Chris, how can people follow you, man?
They can find me at Chris Allen Comedy on all things social media. Check out my special, Gotta Be Honest, on YouTube on Mark Norman's page.
Check
Should
it
have
out,
some
yo.
dates coming up soon. And check out my be on the lookout for my new podcast, a new OG star, me and my boy Jamal Dowell here in Charlottesville. That should be starting in mid-January. Super excited about that. New OGs and
Yeah,
at
yeah.
Chris Allen Comedy.
Dope, dope.
Yeah.
All right, y'all. We'll talk to y'all next Friday. Peace.
Please.